What's going on, world? Welcome back to another edition of the Black Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Reg. Joined today with me is a therapist in the building, special guest, of course, a Black man therapist, but amongst other things, father. But I don't introduce people, Brandon, because I want to make sure that they don't lose their credentials. Y'all worked hard. Any highlights? This is a chance to tell the people who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Reg, for having me, man. As I was kind of sharing with you before, thank you for this platform. So for those who I am being introduced to for the first time, my name is Brandon Allison. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor in the state of North Carolina, specifically nationally certified counselor, all of those alphabets behind my name. I went to Winston-Salem State University for my undergrad. I'm a proud two-time HBCU alum, Winston-Salem State University, North Carolina A&T State University, is where I received my master's in clinical mental health counseling in 2016. But the reality is I've been doing mental health work since 2010 after I graduated from Winston-Salem State. So I was told not long after I graduated and started to cut my teeth in mental health that if you have been working in mental health for 5 years, 6 years, they said double it automatically, just because of the revolving door, how many clients and people's lives that you'll actually encounter from a day-to-day basis. It's not the same, as going to work in some fields or areas where, you don't meet as many people. But when you see anywhere from 5 to 20 people a week, that's a lot of lives that you're coming into contact with. So the hours are the same, but the energy and the effort and the work that it takes is definitely different. So like you said, counselor is just one of the hats that I wear, but father, friend, uncle, husband, all of that stuff, so it's a lot, but I love each hat. I love each one, every single one of them.
So I gotta ask you because me, I'm working on getting the letters behind my name now. I was just doing the work outside, and then I was like, you know what, I want to take it as far as I could take it. So let me go get some of the trainings and things and being in school. So I actually went back to come and get some of those things. But just to take it back, like, is this what you wanted to do when you were younger? Because I don't remember too many therapists as a youngin coming up in school, and it's like, all right, that's a viable career options for me. I can look back on those things now and be like, oh, that's how that plays out. But it wasn't and I think that portrays the why as not as many Black men in the field either. Like, how did you even, get into it, and was this the path that you saw for yourself?
Yeah, you know what, man, I'm a very transparent dude, man. So I'd be lying to you if I told you, if you asked me at 10 and I said I wanted to be a therapist, I did not. But you know what, I had a lot of people, I do believe, looking back and reflecting on how family members used to come to me. It's interesting that I had, aunts and uncles, everybody just always felt comfortable talking to Brandon. And would ask me my opinion on things. And I've always considered myself, articulate. And my grandmother used to always say, I've been here before, that I just had an old soul or a very old spirit. I knew my place. I knew when not to speak. Don't get me wrong. But I think it started there with just having more than, I would say, above average conversations for my age group at that time. I didn't see counselors and therapists either, and certainly not Black males. I think I had one coach at the time who I still keep in contact with to this very day, who was an African-American male who shaped me in more ways. And I think maybe even he realizes, but again, I was a coach, not necessarily a counselor or a therapist or someone that I felt was doing exactly what I'm doing now. Absolutely not. I think school counselors was really all that I knew of. And most of them were female, Caucasian females, not really anybody who looked like me. So I think it started there and just kind of moved into, I would say, college was when I really started to get more into the human services aspect of, I think I want to help people. And even then, I wasn't exactly sure I wanted to be a therapist right away, but I knew I wanted to help people in some capacity. That much I did know.
I want to stay right there too. So what was the light bulb moment of like, you know what, this is the vehicle that I'm going to take to help people? I think in some capacity, we all want to serve and help. Right. but like,
Right.
why was that your version of helping?
You know what? I don't know if it was a moment or moments. I did intensive in-home. For anybody not familiar with that, I mean, I worked with kids. That's really how I got started, working with at-risk youth in the juvenile justice system here in North Carolina, which they have a pretty solid system in terms of the structure of it and services that they offer here in North Carolina. And so I did intensive in-home working with that population, and primarily it was Hispanic males and African American males. That was primary. They would be the bulk of my caseload. And so I got to go into these homes, Reg, and I got to see how they lived. I got to see their family dynamics, auntie, uncle, brothers, cousins. I got to see a whole generation of people, you know what I mean, like in a home. So you really get to see, okay, this child is having these challenges in school or in the community to the point that law enforcement has now gotten involved and they're on the radar for that. But where do they come from? You know, what's really impacting where they come from versus just treating what we think is happening. And a lot of the things that we were doing, to be transparent, really was just treating that part of it. And I think something in my mind clicked for me, especially to be honest, when I was working with my own people. I would help anybody, you know, and I still do. But it was a different feeling I got sitting across from someone's grandmother who looked at me like, help my grandson, or looking across from somebody, somebody's father or mother, and they say, you know, you're the one. I want him to see you, because he doesn't see that when he's even here with us or even in the communities. Because you go into the community, you know what I'm saying? So it's really, it was an awakening for me. I think that I said, okay, I think I could do more, because I'm talking to the child, but I want to talk to mom and dad too, because I see something that's going on between them. And I see that there's a pattern. We got 3 other brothers who've also come through the same system. They may be incarcerated or they've had their own, you know, challenges coming from the same family system. So to me, that was, I think, what started that light bulb to come on and say, I'm here working with this child, but I think I need to work with y'all too. Like, we need to work together as a family, because if I'm only addressing one part of this wheel, it's still not going to spin the way you want it to.
And as you were talking, I'm thinking about just you showing up in certain spaces already brings a certain level of like cultural competency that, without even speaking a word, just you being there
Right.
speaks
Right.
like to the fact. And then you add, excuse me, the mental health education behind it. It only deepens the impression of the impact that you can make. Can you talk about that, since you are a Black man who's a therapist in this mental health ecosystem, and now that you're on the other side, now you seen it where it was barriers, like why is no Black men as therapists or whatever the case may be, and now
Right.
you're a Black man who's a therapist, but now you can speak the language of, oh, these are the different, you know, potholes and that we fall into of why it's not introduced into our community. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. I think, you know, I think looking back on it, I think there's a number of factors why that's not introduced. And I'll be, you know, very candid with you. I think, you know, when we're pushing careers, I think we always think money, finance, when we're encouraging careers or career development. Sports in our communities is still huge, which is good. Those are good vehicles for things. But I think I've learned over time that that's not the only vehicle, right? You know, for us to be a part of that. We have so many other skill sets that I think can branch off into really tapping into, I think, being assistive. Not necessarily, you don't have to be the leader to be assistive. You know, I think you have to have a zeal for wanting to help people in a different, you know, compassion. But I think when you look at those careers, even some of the brothers that I know who work in education, they're also gender pushed. I think when you look at brothers that work in education, that women can teach. Well, no, men can teach too. You know, and I think that's not pushed or encouraged as much in the helping profession or some of your education professions. I always remember conversations I had with some of my friends when I first got to college, and they were in the education department, but they were also becoming PE teachers. Which there's nothing wrong with that. There is still education to health and physical education, but I didn't know a lot of brothers who were going to teach math. I didn't know a lot of brothers who were going in to teach social studies or to be in that capacity. And I think so for us, we're just not pushed in this direction to be teachers or to be counselors, to kind of be present. And so I think speaking to exactly what you said, when people did see me coming, it was like a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways, because I think there's this relatability factor that they're like, this person's going to understand where I'm coming from. This guy, this male. And I think for so long, our communities, not that there wasn't positive male representation, but when you look at it, there wasn't enough positive Black male representation in the communities that we were helping. So if that's few and far in between for you, when you see someone who looks different, you're going to gravitate towards that. And so I like that feeling, I really did. And so I think we have to do more to talk to other young men who look like me and you, to tap into that zeal, that if they want to help, if they want to be a part of the change in their communities, there are other ways to do it besides sports, besides, these other avenues or careers. And you really got to talk and cultivate passion, I think, for what it is that we do in this world that we're a part of, for sure.
No, and I think that's so key, and you thank you for that, because it is something that's pushed. I never even thought about it being like a gender specific, even like a nurse, like a male can't be a nurse or whatever.
Right.
My wife works in special education, and they have to lift these because they can't use their legs or their arms or something.
Right.
And because it's a woman, dominated field, the women are lifting, where it's like we need the help of men to help, cater to it. So I never even thought about that being one of the barriers of having that that men don't feel like it's a space for them in that capacity.
And when you say space, and that tapped another thought for me, and let's this is an honest, open conversation. Let's be honest. We go back to that ideal of that this is emotion centered, this is emotional based, and Black men don't cry, Black men don't have emotion. And I think about hearing such blanketed statements, and where does that come from? Where would that don't cry, toughen up, when we tell children that to be tough. And so if you're taught to be tough, you're going to, or that's a sign of weakness, that emotions are, gender-based as well. You're not going to gravitate towards something that may require you to be exposed or to be vulnerable. And I don't know that we teach our children, our male children, I don't think we teach them that side of vulnerability. I mean, they come into the world crying, but then all of a sudden when they're 3 and 4, we got a problem with it. That all of a sudden we're shaping boys to be men at 3 or 4 years old. And I've had so many conversations with other providers and men and my family that our plight is so different that we have to raise our children different. I'm not blaming us for it in totality. A lot of it is intergenerational, that's how we're raised. So then we create this perpetual cycle of raising other Black children, boys, to be the exact same way that they were taught. And so it's not, it's almost, it's counterproductive in a lot of ways. And I think we're trying to prepare our men for what they're going to face, because they will be a man one day, they will be. But I think we have to start that ball rolling so much earlier than our counterparts. It's unfair to us, but we're not going to gravitate towards careers where you're taught this skill set that you may not have ever really been exposed to.
It brings me to this concept, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I'm trying to figure out, and even having this conversation and with like on a podcast or whatever openly, is to kind of like create whatever it's going to be. The term gentleman, and we talk about gentlemen and what the requirements may be, or what a gentleman looks like. But then you think about, and again, I'll speak and you can tell me if I'm wrong. People may take being gentle as a kind of a weakness. And so when you grow up in a certain environment, you want to be gentle, but you also have to be, you got to be protective. You got to be smart. Sure. Talk about that duality of like, still being able to express yourself, but also be like, yo, don't play with me like that. You get what I mean? Like, and how to have to navigate that.
Don't play with me though, because I'm not right. You know what? I think it's really great you bring that up. I'm very big on diction, word choice. I believe there's so much power in words. So when you use the word gentle, we automatically associate being gentle with soft. And we attach these negative concepts and this negative connotation to so many words. Even the word black, is in a lot of ways is associated with darkness and gloom and things that aren't positive, right? And we grow up associating, I think, or being taught to give power to these words. And the duality, like you mentioned, I think is a struggle in our communities because we only gravitate towards one aspect of what it means to be a layered person. That we don't expose the layers, we just hammer home toughness, not being a punk, not being soft, and all of these other things, when in actuality, things do hurt. And my expression is maybe tears, or it's not always anger. And I think we get so rooted that toughness and anger are like synonymous with each other in terms of being family, that I got to be tough, I got to walk around angry, and I got to walk around upset. Well, your emotions are like kind of like muscle memory. Like if you lift a certain amount of weight at one point, there's this idea that your memory and your muscles is going to recall the fact that you could lift this certain amount of weight. Or for a lot of women who I've talked to after pregnancy, I know there's a lot of outliers there, but that a lot of them, their bodies snap back, if you will, to a certain size. If they were already exercising or already doing certain things, their body was like, well, I know that I can be this size again because I've already been here. Your emotions work the same way. So if you've hammered in anger, frustration, no tears, no emotive or no connection, I think is the best way to kind of identify to what I feel. That's what your mind recalls. So when it's time to be something other than angry, a lot of people can't. When there's time for sadness, a lot of people can't tap into that. So they push it, to the side. So we don't create a duality to that both can exist. I think a lot of us, and even looking at our peers, I grew up in a single parent home. I learned a lot of things about maleness, being a male, being a young male from my peers. And you couldn't look weak in front of your friends. That's just what it was. You'd get angry real quick because then it's that don't mess with me because you see I'm angry. You may not even know how to fight. It's just the reality of I look like I'm angry though, right? Like I look like I might know what's going on. Or for so many brothers I knew who depended on size and stature to be opposing, to assert dominance. And I think we as Black men want to be seen as physical, strong, dominant beings so much that we'd rather be seen that way than actually be able to associate that there's another side to me that doesn't always feel that way.
I hope that's getting clipped up and going out on social media.
That's a dope clip. Let's put that out there so somebody can hear that. It's true.
As you was talking, I'm like, I was thinking of the title. It was in there. It was like the muscle memory of emotions, or like something along those lines.
Clip, yeah. See, you already got it. You got the recipe with the title already.
And to your point of that, and I think it stems or it bleeds into our relationships with women as we grow and we start to date and get married. And I know you're a father, and I know you said you have a daughter. I don't know if you have any sons, but what are you?
I do have one son.
So that's even perfect. So what are you integrating on both ends? Because I feel like it's separate conversations for men and women to achieve the same goal. What are you implementing in them as far as that?
Man, that's a really good one there. You may have to clip this one too, I hope, because this is good stuff for fathers to hear. I'll be honest, man. Because again, not being raised, I was raised by a single parent, my mom, beautiful, strong, Black woman, like the epitome of that, truly, to do it by herself. With my son, I think where I struggled is exactly that. I struggle. I mean, I'm human, right? With the duality of, even at his young age, wanting him to be seen and heard, but then also wanting him to find ways to self-soothe like himself. And I think finding a balance between this is a child, but then also teaching him about his emotions and what emotions are. I think that's where I try to integrate that I give him space, that I create a safe space for my son to just be a little boy, And to let it, and I'm not saying that's always, because sometimes crying is just, I mean, it's just call it what it is. It could be annoying. I mean, it is what it is. And you're like, and as a man, and you know, as a father, you be looking like, you crying over that? Like, that's really a crying offense? No, not really, but you know, okay. Finding balance with, and teachable moments are huge in my house. And I let him mentally drain, like emotionally, excuse me, drain off what he feels, because he's got a pretty expansive vocabulary, but he's still only a toddler. So giving him a safe space that it is okay to cry. Like, I can't help that hurt you. I can't help that. I can't change that, and I don't want to change the narrative of what hurt you, or for you to see dad in a light that I can't come and tell dad that I'm hurt. I want you to come and tell dad that you're hurting. And so I do treat all of my children the same in that capacity, that I have an open emotional door. I don't understand all of your emotions, regardless of what I do for a living. I'm not a therapist at home. I put that out there. I am not a therapist at home. I'm dad. You know what I mean? And that's me still learning. Like, I'm still learning what that means, because kids grow, they change, they evolve. But I have an open emotional door to the things I don't understand. And the only way you're going to understand is now, to create that door so they'll come to you later. Because there will be a time where they really can talk and speak. And I never wanted him or my daughters to feel like we got to go to mom. Again, that gender concept of mom being the softer representation, femininity. I can go talk to her. She's has a more gentle approach. You could be gentle going to your concept and still be a man. There's no book or rule that says those two things don't coexist. And you can also still be firm when necessary. So I really try to operate back and forth with what I think this moment calls for.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think about that too, because again, we all online, we all on social media, and I think some of that, when I was reading the bio, conflict and communication, where it's like it's and to give an analogy, it's a city girl mentality, and then there's I don't even know the guy. So many in the rap music, but
it's
like
so many, right?
Lil Baby, whatever, like in that mindset of like, I don't care, I'm worried about me. And again, I just learned about interdependence as opposed to independence. And I'm like, oh, interdependence is what we're striving for. But so many people are focusing on independent that they're not realizing that we need each other to work together to create the best outcome. And that's why I asked you like about the conversation between, all right, I have to have this conversation with my son and this conversation with my daughters, because I know that they're going to meet people in this world, and this is how they're supposed to, or not supposed to, they have to be aware of these interactions.
Yep. Society creates, right? Because I think, just kind of touching base on some of that, when you, the moment you send your children off, not even just to school, obviously school is a big proponent of it, and it's a large community within itself. But I mean, even down to sports, and my children are at that age where they are getting into sports. The moment your children is out, your child or children are outside of your home, and they get to see how other people are raised, that to me, that's what starts the teaching process of like social learning, because your children also pick up these other behaviors and patterns that they don't know. This little Johnny gets to go and do this. Well, I can go and do that. They don't have that concept at 4 and 5 years old in fullness, that me and Johnny have different societal expectations and norms, and maybe our teacher just maybe subconsciously might treat us differently or teach us certain concepts differently. So I think there's a lot of teaching that has to occur in our homes and in Black families that maybe our counterparts aren't doing. And that's not to take away from what goes on in their home, but the teaching has to be a lot different. The conversations do have to be geared towards the fact that we have this uphill battle in a lot of ways in terms of how we're perceived. And I think trying to teach your kids that without saying it the way I just said it to you, that's the challenge. Because you and I are professionals, and we know jargon, and life has impacted us to a degree. So we understand what language we're saying, but you hit the nail on the head, like explaining that to my daughters versus my son, and then also being mindful that their mother has a role to play in that too. Like, it's not just me. They need that balanced approach between the man and the woman and the uncles and my frat brothers and my friends. I'm very selective about the space that my children are a part of. And even my nephew and my nieces, I introduced them to my friends for a reason. These people mean something to me, but they also have jewels and other pieces of information that I hope they can add to enhance who you're growing into. So that's really big for me. That when they say it takes community and it takes a village, that's understated. It really does take a community and a village to raise children. We are not doing this by ourselves. I promise you we're not.
Yeah, and it speaks to, I was listening to what is it called, Stephen Covey's seven habits of highly effective people. I was just finishing that book today, and he was talking about the term of like, if you can't reach your kids, kind of find like surrogate fathers or surrogate mothers where they're taking care of them for a time being, and they can impart information that just because you being the dad or the husband or whatever role you play in that person's life, they will just hear it differently because it's coming from somebody else, and you being okay with that. And I was like, I never even thought about that concept, because you feel like it has to come from you because of your relationship and role you play in that person's life.
Yeah, listen, that concept is really speaking to me right now, because I think that hit me early. I think I wanted to, like in my mind, I was thinking, yeah, I got this. I can do, and mind you, this is coming from a person who didn't have a father. And I just had this conversation with my mom the other day, but I'm so thankful I had my older brother, who's now deceased, but I had so many other male figures that in their own way, I believe came through my life's path for a reason, that taught me so much. And they, I guess you call them OGs or mentors, whatever. I don't know if that's what they knew they were being at the time, but they spoke into my life based on their own personal mistakes, also based on what they seen in me. Like I can honestly say that the Black men who were influential in my life, they always spoken to me positively. They spoke, man, you're gonna do great things. They had no clue what it was. They didn't say you're gonna be a therapist. They didn't say you go into the league. They just said you got something. You're a smart, sharp kid. And they just spoke that into me. And I'll be honest, maybe even in a arrogant way, so to speak, at that time, I bought into that. I'm like, I am smart, huh? Yeah, I can do this. And then I actually was fortunate to have teachers, and I'll be honest, they weren't the same color as me, but I had teachers who recognized that too. And they really pulled that out of me and say, you don't need to hang with this kid, or you hanging with them, but I see that that's not really you. And they really pulled and molded a lot of those things into me. It was up to me to still, I think, capitalize on that and to make something out of that. But I can honestly say that they spoke it, into me. It really takes a village approach. And for me to have lacked that father, that relationship one-on-one, I had so many other relationships that I think cultivated me to see life in a different way, because all of these different experiences, all of these different worldviews, I just took something from all of them. I really did.
Man, and that's, so I agree, because I had the same thing in my life, man. And I go back to one of my uncles that imparted so much information, and it was pivotal.
Uncles are dope.
It was pivotal in the time that I was growing. But I'm gonna tell you my problem, what I had with that, and the reason why I have a problem. And it's a tongue-in-cheek problem, but Black men get such a negative connotation behind being like deadbeats or cheaters or all of these different things, right? That the good ones that's out there, they're just out there being good. They're not like over positive and letting everybody know how good they is. They doing good and doing their thing and then getting out the way. And I'm like, man, I think about the uncle that I'm thinking about, and I'm like, he don't say a word. Gave me books, gems, wisdom, and you would never know who he is. Like he just, you chill with his family and that's it. And it's like, but we need more of him highlighted, because there's so much negative highlighted on this side.
Right. It is. And excuse me, there's so much of that. I have conversations. I have my nephew is my brother's son, and he, obviously lost his dad at a few years ago. So that was at a pivotal transition, 16, 17 years old. And I can't fill the void. I can't be a father. I'm not his father, but there were qualities that I felt I can still impart these things as your uncle, right? To help you in this transition, navigate your grief, your anger, your frustration. Because if we just sit back and we don't do that, and we don't ask questions. And I'm sure he probably got tired. He's not the most expressive dude that I've ever come across, like his dad. Same thing. But I didn't stop that from me saying what I felt was good for you to hear in this moment. And so that's why I say uncles are dope, man. And having somebody, I think, who cares, and I think it's just a genuine care and concern. It's a true compassion and a love to see somebody else do well, to see somebody else be well. And I think that's what my friends recognize in me too. I am that friend that when my bros leave, my friends, I'm like, hey man, text me when you get home. Like, text me when you get home. I love you. I end my conversations with my friends and I laugh at which ones I know who say it real quick, like they rush it. And I'm like, but I heard it, you know what I mean? So I take it, I know that it's coming from a genuine place. But I'm that friend. And I like to think maybe I've been instrumental in them being okay with saying it, that I'm that one therapist in our group who, and they don't call me soft or think I'm too emotive. I am who I am. And that doesn't take away from my maleness or my masculinity, because this is the person that I project. They accept me as I am, and vice versa. And they come to me, not as a therapist, because I make that clear too, that I have boundaries, in that area. But that doesn't mean I won't help my friends get to where they need to be, because that's who I am. And I think they genuinely accept the authenticity that I have as a person. That we're all Black men trying to figure this thing out, especially at this point, you trying to have a family, children, and work and school and death, loss, our parents are aging. There are so many transitions. How can you hold all of that in and balance that by yourself? And not know that there are other men going through the exact same thing? Like, how do we not create that bridge? We got all these group chats. We'll talk about shoes, clothes, women, whatever it is. How do we not talk about how we feel? We have to. We have to make that a part of general conversations. So my friends know that them being well is important to me. They know that.
Man, you bring up such an important topic that I'm still like dealing with and processing for myself, because as much as I'm in this mental health realm and field now and getting the knowledge and being out there doing it and having conversations like this, there's still something. It's one of my friends that do it, and he say I love you after like every call, and there's still that uncomfortability, and I think it comes from not having a man actually say that to you, where it raising you in that, where it's like, wait, if I say I love you, but like, what does this mean? Like, you start to go through all these different process. So I'll say it back, but it's like you said, real quick, love you, bro. Like, it's never like a yo.
All right, bro, I love you too.
But I'll give this in the conversation.
Yeah.
The one time that I genuinely felt it and meant it was when one of my closest friends was locked up and seeing him in jail. And I felt that, but didn't have none of that weirdness between it. It was like, no, I really love you. Like, be safe in here. Like, whatever the case may be. And I don't know why it has to be that detrimental, where it could be just a phone call and you could have been telling him this. I haven't told him that since he been home. Like, and I told him that in that moment. So I'm asking you from one Black man to another, but also that therapy, again, getting that free. You're going to charge for this tomorrow, so I'm going to get it free for now.
Invoices. Yeah. Nah, I'm glad you asked, man. I may ask you a question in return. But I think, love is trust. And you do bring up a good point. I think we are social learners, and we, from a very young age, learn from the environments that we're a part of. And so it doesn't mean you are absent of love, but seeing it in that capacity. I do a lot of couples work, and you'd be surprised, and I mean women too, Black women too, how many women I get that are not as affectionate with their children, because their mothers may not have been that affectionate or loving towards them. Doesn't mean that they're absent of the concept of love, but their version of love looks different. So maybe giving is a version of love for them, doing, providing certain things, but actually saying it, hugging, touching, all of that is not a given just because you tell someone that you love them. Love is a trust. And I think that you working even within yourself is learning how to be trusting and vulnerable to say that, well, I'm not the men that I didn't see, I'm me. And if there's love present within me, I can share that. I want to share that. So it's trusting the other person to communicate it and that it's received and that you're getting it out. It's for you. That I need you to know that I love you because I feel it and it's there. I'm going to just say it. You know, like it's love is trust and it is being vulnerable in a very vulnerable space. And you want to have friendships at this point in our lives that allow you to be in that space. Like if you got to be somebody different around the people that you know hang around, and you got to put on a certain mask or put on a certain. My friends have seen me at my worst. I've had a few pick me up off the floor, literally, not figuratively, literally help me get up off of the floor from being in an emotional space when my brother died. Learning how to manage grief. And I wasn't worried about what they thought about me in that moment. I was worrying or being more in tune with this is what I feel. And I was okay with that. And so having friends, I think, who allow you to be who you are in the space that you're in with them, that's what makes friendships bond and bonds close. So my friends, we've broken bread together. We've lost, we've won. We've gotten married. I've seen some, that have gotten divorced. We're walking through all of these life's paths together. And when you know that brother is there for you through all of that, hey man, I love you. I genuinely love you because you didn't have to be there, but it also wasn't a question that you were there. You just were. And that means a lot to us when you see somebody show up for you and that's present and that they're consistent.
Yeah, no, and you make a great point because, like you said, won together, lost together. I think it's just the language around. My mom is an Islander. She never she grew up coming there fighting to get to America, then had to fight for everything else. So she coming from that context, didn't really have to say it. She's saying it now, and it's like weird, and I'm still getting adjusted to that. But
it's an adjustment if you never heard it. Yeah.
And then dad not being there and not having that, so much to the soul that is transition to my relationship and as a father, where it's like I don't tell my kids like that I love them because I didn't have the seeding of it planted in me early to do that. My wife, she do that all day and tomorrow. Me, is still like even if I do it with my son, it'd be like grab him by the head. Yeah, I love you, man. Like you get what I mean? It's still just awkward. And it's like it shouldn't be, but I know it's a growing process on my end to feel comfortable in that.
Yeah, and you know what, man, I'll be honest, because I do that with my son too. It is still more of I hug my son, I kiss my son, because I want him to feel that from dad. Like I want him to feel that. My daughters too, because I don't want either of them to say, well, he held his daughter, a little bit, he didn't hold it. Man, from the time I got both of them, it's just a feeling that like it's just when you hold that being for the first time and that came from you, it's indescribable that you're responsible for this person. And I'll be honest, you're not going to always get it right. I do not get parenting right. And she introduced me to the people who do. I think we're all learning to do the best that we can. And I think part of the dynamic of parenting is learning and unlearning how you were raised to make your own way of how you want to teach and raise your children. My mother was wonderful. She's dope. But everything she did with me, I don't subscribe to as a parent. Everything she taught me, makes sense for me because I was her child. My children aren't me. They're just extensions of who I am. So they also grow up in a totally different world. I was born in the 80s. I'm an 80s baby. These kids, my oldest daughter, like I teach her concepts of things that I know for sure make sense. I know it makes sense. And I look at me and I'm like, it helped me, dad made it, dad's doing this. And she looks at me like, yeah, but I could still act Siri, I could still do this. And I'm like, see, this is a different world that we're living in. But touching base on, with you, give yourself grace, man, to be the father, not that you think you should be, just the one you want to be. And you tell yourself that every day. You affirm the type of man, the type of father and partner that you want to be. Because when we always operate in should, that's some of that's fear-based. Like I should be this type of dad. I should make this amount. We should live in this type of home or this type of environment. That's always that's that hamster on the wheel. You keep moving the line of completion for yourself. And if you operate in only that line, you'll never give yourself the credit that you're due. And you got to give yourself credit. You got to give yourself credit.
I appreciate that. And again,
Yeah,
y'all
man.
gonna charge for this tomorrow, so I get it for free. And then I tell the listeners that every time I get a therapist and like they charge for this tomorrow, so get all these gems for free as much as you can.
Hey, man, this is free game, man. And I hope that people listen to it and hear it, and not just apply it. You know, somebody asked me when I start, because I'm kind of new to the social media aspect of having like a separate page or following and all of that, because I just never thought about it in that way. Like, I'm comfortable speaking to you and to others, but I never thought about like, yeah, you know, other people need to. I was just operating from, these are the people who come see me. They know what type of therapist I am. They know. And the more things that started to happen in our communities, I was like, I'm a voice. And if social media is a platform, I'm gonna put my voice out there. I don't care if I have 5 followers. That's 5 people who can share it with 5 other people, who hopefully will share it with 5 other people. If one person likes something I put out there one day, great. That's one less person who knew something, hopefully didn't know something that they, you know, didn't know before they came to my page or your page or what have you. Like, we have so many vessels of information. Like, how do we not share what we're learning, what we're walking through in life? Like, we got to put that information out there. Like, we have to. So it's free today. It is, for sure. I hope people hear it and keep coming back to your page or hear something that maybe they haven't heard before. That's what the vehicle to me is about, especially in our communities. We talk so much about so many other things, but not about how well we are or how well we aren't.
Man, I'm going right into it. You said social media, and I, for those who are
Hey,
listening,
there's the plug. My man is the plug.
For those who are listening,
Yes,
Brandon
sir.
had a quote on the social media that thought it was important into bringing this conversation. Is therapy is not advice. Therapy is a guided journey that assists us with ways to master our thoughts and emotions, to help cultivate ways to heal, so that we are not servants to the feelings that cause us pain or stall our growth. Can you talk about what you mean when you put this up? What sparked this?
Absolutely. A lot of people think that's what we do, that we just sit and give advice, that people just come in and I tell you exactly what to do. I tell you how to do it step by step. This is how you should do it. This is what, if I did that for every person who came into my office or who sits across from me on a computer screen, they'd be living my life.
Mm.
That's what advice is. Advice is me telling you, you ever have somebody, well, I mean, if I was you, I would. Or, man, that couldn't be me because I wouldn't. You know, that's what your friends are for and your family. And I want to be real clear about this. It doesn't mean you can't talk to family and friends that you trust, but understand that their emotional attachment to you makes their advice or their thoughts about you very self-driven in a lot of ways, because they're attached to you. So they're going to sometimes tell you stuff that you that maybe you don't even, I don't know, maybe it's not geared towards just telling you the truth. A lot of times it's just for your benefit. And all things that you need to hear aren't going to just benefit you in the most positive way. And I think that's where advice and an actual trained clinical professional go this way. Because I look at my clients very transparent. I am who I am as a therapist, and I have my own style, you know, and I tell them not just the truth, but we're really cultivating a relationship brand new from the ground up. So we got to build rapport and trust from the top. And that's not my advice, because then you'd be doing something the way I think it should be done. And I have clients come out and flat out ask me, well, what do you think I should do about this? And I literally push it back. What do you think you should do? What makes the most sense to you? And you'd be surprised. They're going to answer the question. They answer the question, and then we walk through what they said, the feelings that they have. So now we're on a guided process together. That's not advice. We're walking through what you said. You're the lead. I'm kind of co-facilitating and maybe pulling out elements of things that you maybe never thought about before, giving you certain strategies or interventions to kind of maybe rework or, you know, shift thinking in a more rational way. But that's not advice. You know, you could, I mean, I remember my auntie telling me, you know, a drunken man could tell you to get out the street. That's damn good advice. If a car is coming and somebody tell you to get out the street, that's damn good advice. You didn't pay for it. You don't know that person in that aspect, but that's advice. He's advising you to move, right? When you come in, I'm not telling you what to do. We got to meet where you are to see, what do you want to do? What's important to you? Because if I'm telling you what I think is important to you, you're now subscribing to my school and train of thought on how you should live the life you got to go back to.
I love it, man. I love it, and that actually is what inspired me to go back to school to make sure to get that type of, because, like you said, that's where it veers off at. Once
Yeah,
you start to get the clinical aspect of it, it has now become a different type of conversation.
it's
When you're
different.
just, coaching or whatever in the case may be, that's just it's two different things, and I can't explain it. Y'all do a great job of explaining, but it really is out, because I was one of those people that was like, when they be like, oh, you could just talk to me, like, why are you paying somebody to do it? But that
Right.
level of clinical training and having those different techniques help bring out more things than just, you can do it, like giving that motivation. Is like, no,
Right.
I'm giving you a technique to pull information out of
Yeah.
yourself, and I think that's where the true value lies.
It is. And again, like I said, that emotional attachment really makes the difference, that your friends and family, excuse me, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I like to think that our friends and family, for most of us, want the best for us. Obviously, there are outliers to everything. So I want to be careful in saying that. But the reality of it is that if I always want the best for you, sometimes I may not give you the real. I may not give you that hardcore truth. And if you're blessed to have family and friends who do that, that's great. But that's still them advising you because they know you. They're still advising you from a place of endearment, from a relationship that is built on trust and safety. And oh man, me and you done swung on the monkey bars together. That's automatically going to shift the context of that relationship and what they're telling you, which is why even if there was no ethics behind it, I'm not counseling my friends. Like, how could I sit in front of my guy and his wife and listen to what they got going on in their marriage and then call myself an unbiased individual to a person I have an emotional attachment to, or a relationship that I have an emotional attachment to? That's me telling you what I want for y'all, what I want for what you guys, you know what I mean? Like, that's advice. And I don't pride myself on doing that in a clinical room.
Man,
And people need to know that, because they think when they come to therapists, oh, I got great. If you take something I say and you leave and you say, well, my therapist advised me to do, I can't change that concept of it, that's how you feel, that it was advice on a certain scenario, but that's not what we give. I've never once told a client that I'm going to advise, and this is good advice, you should take this with you.
Nah, and I actually, as we begin to close out, one of the questions I had was, how do you turn the therapist hat off in your relationship? Because you use husband, in your relationship, when you use some of the techniques as a therapist to make your relationship run smoothly.
Yeah, man. I think my wife sometimes says she felt like that I'm therapizing her even when I'm not. But to be honest with you, some of it is it's a skill set. It's organic. And I'm gonna be 100 with you. You don't turn it off completely. When I'm watching TV and I'm watching things and I watch sports and whatever, I'll be looking at people, and now granted, I don't pull out the DSM, but I'll be like, that looks like this, or that reminds me of this. Sometimes it's just kind of hard not to see, because I'm a behaviorist. Like, I study behavior, but I always have. So I think that's the thing that separates me and maybe some other, clinicians who do the same thing. This is in you. You may have gone and received training and certifications, but there's something in you that already has a lot of this natural ability anyway. So you don't turn it off. I think it's learning to manage the usage of it. I don't reframe my children's statements. I don't reframe what my wife. So it sounds like you're telling me, no, not at all. And I think being emotionally attached again just kind of cancels that out. It just wouldn't work. But I think what it does do, it does allow me to know certain skills and techniques that I think could be helpful. that can kind of reduce conflict or, assist us in communicating more. But when I turn off my light in my office, whether that's at home or what have you, I'm out. That's that. But I do think it provides me a level of vulnerability that maybe some struggle a little harder to. I'm tapped into that level for me. But I think a lot of that's organic. So it's like an organic training of natural skills. Like it's a training of skills that are already there, but you do turn it off because you turn off elements of it, how you speak and how you say certain things. But I've always been this person, and people who know me, that's why people talk to me in high school, in my family. Like I was, I've had people say to me, you gonna be a doctor or you gonna be, a therapist. I will come and sit on your couch, or what have you. And I was 16 years old. I was just listening. You know what I mean? But that was a ear that was getting me prepared for where I am now. So I'm thankful for that. But you do have to be mindful to you're not at work. So don't speak like you are at work. But it does help if you know certain things to try that maybe other people don't. But I'm not doing it and taking no note on it. I'm like, man, I hope this resolves this conflict right now because I want to be back in a good place right now, right? So but I think you got to learn. And then you also kind of going back to other things I know we didn't get into, but doing things to take care of you, to separate your work life because it is draining. And I'd be lying if I said that it's not, that you're working with other people. It does take away from, it takes away from those other roles that you play. So that is something I want to share with you. Have activities and things that allow you to be just Reg, man. Just it's not about what you know. It's not about what you do. It's just you refilling your cup. And that's something that I share so much with people. You got to refill that cup because you're constantly giving, even with your work, doing your podcast and posting and content. That's energy. That's work. You got to have time away from that where if you didn't post for such and such amount of days because you just needed to refill, you got to refill. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's all right. You got to refill that cup, man. So.
Nah, and I appreciate that too. And I'm still like stuck on the organic training of the natural skills, man. And because I feel like I'm getting away with almost like a free degree because I'm in behavioral health. And as I'm studying and taking these classes, I'm like, I naturally have these conversations and these thoughts. So when I'm seeing quizzes, I'm like, oh, it's that. And then it's like, oh, that was easy. And it's just making it so much easier. I'm like, oh,
it is.
Wow.
It is. I had, before I came to my graduate program in North Carolina A&T, I was 27, 8 years of mental health experience. So there were certain conversations that my cohorts were more taken aback by, things that they seen on internship sites that was brand new to them. And I was like, yeah, I've always felt comfortable in the interviewee type of, like when we're sitting across from someone. Yes, I made mistakes, but there was another level of comfort that my professor said, yeah, I can see you have been working. Because there were other elements to reframing and conversations that weren't as foreign to me. Because like you said, that skill set, I've already been practicing it. I might not have known that's what I was practicing it for, but there was terminology and things that I was already privy to. So I had to hone in on maybe more theoretical approaches and frameworks, things like that, to then add to who Brandon is. I can't be the book. And if you sit across from, African-American clients and try to put the book on them, they probably not coming back to you. They're probably not coming back. And I knew that in my 20s doing intensive in-home, I didn't come in with my briefcase and my, and ready to do paperwork and start typing. You don't even know these people. Yeah, you got paperwork to do, and I know you're ready to get home, but explain to these people what program that they're becoming a part of, because most of them don't want to. Most of them did not want to be, you're going to come to my house 3 times a week between 4 and 6. I work, I do this, I got that. I need to talk to you about why this is being put in place. Let's put the paperwork to the side. Let's just talk. So you can get to see me a little bit more and I can get to see you. And I think that's my big piece about therapy, is building rapport. When they teach you that skill set in your program, that's it. Other therapists may say something different, and that's fine. We all have different trains of thought, but building rapport, that'll get you in a lot of places and spaces with your clients. If you can build rapport, because if there's rapport, there's trust.
As we close out, man, I was going to ask you, do you got any final words or anything that we want to get on the people? Like you said, we didn't get as much as I wanted to get done, but Brandon will be back in the future.
I'll do a part 2. I'll do a part 3, whatever it is. I will say, with the time that we do have, I want to get. I'm a big believer, Reg, in giving flowers. I want to take time to give you your flowers. Thank you for doing what you're doing, brother. I'm glad you have more than just an interest in coming into this field. I'm glad that somebody spoke something into you, and grateful that you grabbed a microphone and said, this is what I'm gonna do. I want to be a part of this world. I'm glad that we live in a time frame that allows things like this to exist, for other men and providers and clinicians alike to have a space for us to come and talk. And so I want to give you flowers for creating this content. Your page, I followed it a while back. I said, this brother looks like he knows what he's talking about. I didn't even know off the bat that you weren't even a provider or a therapist yourself, because the conversations flow so fluidly and so organically. I'm glad you're coming into the fold. And if there's anything I can do offline, I sincerely mean that, to help in any capacity. You find your clinical wings, I absolutely would, but I want to give you your flowers and just thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be a part of your platform and what it is that you're doing for us, by us. I appreciate that. For sure.
No, thank you for that, and I appreciate that, because it was just a journey of just trying to interview and just come on and do my part. But now, as I feel a level of responsibility, the more that I have these conversations and the more that I learn. So that's where the schooling coming in. And then even to your point of like, I'm gonna bring some therapists in here more and more. And because I want to create like an encyclopedia of like just information with just podcasts where someone, I recently learned that people in jail brothers in jails get to listen to the podcast, and they wrote me, and it was like, man, that's a level of responsibility of making sure bringing brothers like yourself in to have these conversations so they can hear it and be like, man, there's a different routes that I can go.
Absolutely, man. There's so many. So that's the thing. It's more of us than people know, but it's not a lot of us. Like in every city, I'm sure every city looks different, but I'm in the South. I'm in North Carolina. So yeah, I mean, Charlotte and those areas, we're here, but we're still not the majority. And I think what I've seen pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, more vehicles like this have encouraged people that this is okay. Like therapy is okay. It's not what we've been taught that it is, that people can look like me, look like you. They can have ink and tattoos and what have you. And it's not this super structured, thing. Like, no, let's build a relationship and let's make the vehicle of therapy fit the needs that you have. Let's do that together. Let's tell more people that it's okay, whether it's grief, loss, marriage, children, think about all that you and I talked about in an hour. Most of your sessions are about an hour. So if we talked about all of this in 60 minutes, imagine what you can do working with someone on your own to talk personally. About it 60 minutes personally, that looks like you, that you can build a relationship with. So that's my final part. Go to therapy. Make that appointment. Don't be afraid, or even if you are, sit down in the chair and don't stop until you find the right fit. Therapy is about fit. Find the right person that fits your needs, for sure.
Man, on that note, please make sure y'all share Brandon's interview with someone, share his information and all of the different things he have going on. Again, getting that free therapy online will set that seed to be like, all right, I'm gonna sign up. Like, he's sharing so much information, I'm gonna sign up. So please follow him. The link will be in the description, but also over his head in the clips of the videos or whatever. And then remember that this platform has never been about replacing therapy. It's an alternative place where people share therapeutic stories. Thank you for listening. Make sure y'all subscribe and leave a review on Apple.
That's perfect. Thank you, Reg. I appreciate you, man. Take care.